Tonight on Elon Local News.
Not such a fast car. We look into Elon Town Police response time to reports on and off campus.
We call them student athletes, and while we know what they can do on the field, tonight find out what they've been doing in the classroom.
It's at a sad point now where we feel like we need to shield ourselves from people who disagree with us.
From the bathroom to the classroom, we speak with students and teachers who say the bill has affected more than their bathroom preference.
Those stories and more.
The final Elon Local News broadcast starts right now. Good evening and thanks for tuning in to the last Elon Local News broadcast of the year. I'm Brianna McClelland.
And I'm Rajat Agarwal. We begin tonight with problems facing our Elon Town Police Force.
The town of Elon is often rated among the safest areas in North Carolina, but our Andrew Feather investigated how its growing population has affected its police force.
Almost 40% of Elon students live off campus, but as the town and university populations have grown, the Elon Town Police Force hasn't.
We're not at a critical mass like some departments. We're not overwhelmed, but yes, we want to begin. That's why we're looking at personnel, because we want to keep pace and get into a pattern where we don't have to play catch up.
Elon Town Police Chief Cliff Parker says the average police force for a town the size of Elon is 20 officers. Elon currently employs 15 officer positions and hasn't increased in size for more than 5 years. Despite this, he says he is confident his staff can handle the workload.
We are able to provide the services that the town deserves and expects.
According to records from Alamance County Central Communications, Elon Town Police has seen an increase in response times over recent years. The average time it takes from when a call is made to when police arrive has increased by nearly 32% over the last 5 years, from just under 11 minutes to almost 14 and a half minutes. This continues a trend which goes back as far as 2008, when Elon police arrived on scene in less than 10 minutes on average. Parker says some of this is due to human error, like logging issues, but says the department is also facing an increased number of calls as the town and Elon University grow.
While we've stayed pretty much at our personnel levels, calls for service have increased, and so when you start adding that, then it can lead to a busier schedule.
The town spends about 18% of its budget on the police force, a smaller percentage than nearby cities and towns like Burlington, Mebane, and Gibsonville. Parker says local police departments work together and cites a strong relationship with Elon Campus Police and other nearby departments. He says without them, his department would be in trouble.
If we were just by ourselves with no assistance, we would definitely need more personnel.
Parker says the department is evaluating whether it needs to add more officers to the staff in the future, and it is likely at least one position will be added in the next budget cycle. Andrew Feather, Elon Local News.
The town of Elon's next budget cycle starts on July 1st.
The topic of racial inclusion on campus caused a heated debate at Thursday's SGA meeting. Junior Arts and Sciences Senator Chris Tarpley started the conversation and was disappointed he was the only SGA member in attendance at a recent racial education lecture. This prompted a discussion which lasted for over an hour, but Tarpley says he was happy because it opened SGA's eyes to what is truly happening on campus for some students.
From it, and I think that's the most important thing, is learning from what was said and listening to the experiences of other people and understanding what this really is about for us, and that it's not just some fad, that it's just something we do once a year and then we move on to something else.
Junior Executive President Kyle Porro says he is happy Tarpley brought this issue up because it will help him and his staff combat this problem as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Just making sure that the way our system is set up is doing what it's supposed to do, and that our representatives are reaching out to their constituents, and that it's not just a bunch of talking heads in there, but people who are actually going out to their constituents, seeing what's going on around campus, and then bringing that to the room and taking action upon that.
Chris joins us now in studio to tell us more about what prompted the discussion. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us some of the biggest issues that were discussed?
I think one of the biggest issues was, one, making sure that SGA is doing something to show the students that we actually care about the students and that we are interested in issues that are affected by them. I feel a lot of times, especially things with race, they sometimes get swept under the rug. And especially not just with students, black students, but students of Hispanic and Asian descent are sometimes swept under the rug even more just because they do not have the numbers. So I think that was a huge thing that was discussed, and also in what ways can people work towards combating these issues. And I think just bringing that up really helped people to understand how some students of color are feeling and how to better kind of discuss that in a better sense.
And Chris, can you explain a little bit more in the meeting? What was the meeting like, and what exactly did happen during that meeting? What was discussed?
So in SGA meetings, we have an open forum where anyone can talk, and after the race lecture, the professor, Dr. George Yancey, prompted me to ask SGA the question of what does their absence mean for our stance on race issues on our campus, and how does that translate to the campus? So I asked that question, and it has flowed out from there, and a lot of people were throwing out ideas, and I was very thankful for people to be able to say how they really felt so we could have an open dialogue and an honest conversation about the issue, and not just me talking at people. So a lot of people of color in the SGA were bringing up the issues and explaining how they felt, and also the white students were also saying how they felt and trying to understand what was really going on and how we actually felt. So that was an awesome experience.
So Chris, tell us what happens next? How do we continue this discussion and conversation on Elon's campus in the next year to come?
So what I feel like is a lot of people do a lot of personal reflection and really thinking about what are you doing to better this issue? What are you doing in your personal life to help students of color maybe feel more comfortable on campus, and how is your privilege affecting other students in your classes, in your clubs, and anything like that? So that's where I encourage everyone to do. And I also think just opening SG up for students, knowing students can come and talk to us about any issues, that we're a safe space to come and talk. And I think that'll also help us get a better grasp of what's going on with the students and having more of these conversations.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for stopping by and taking the time to
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Tonight, with our continuing coverage of House Bill 2, the Elon student government unanimously passed a resolution against the bill. Thursday, our Connor Delpreet looked into how some students are being affected by another resolution passed by a different group.
Since House Bill 2 passed, Elon University has released 4 resolutions denouncing the bill. This includes a faculty resolution, which passed with 97% of those present. While many students at Elon may agree with the faculty's decision, junior Taylor Schramm says the resolution is a reason why he doesn't speak up in class.
It's at a sad point now where we feel like we need to shield ourselves from people who disagree with us. And that's how I feel as a conservative, not by choice, but because I've been forced to feel this way.
Schramm is not alone in these thoughts. ELN spoke to 5 students who say they don't speak out in class about their conservative views to avoid being singled out, looked down upon, or grade reductions. Freshman Victoria Scott is one of these students.
I noticed in class that she would push me farther to explain things than the other students. So whenever I'd bring up a Republican perspective into it, she'd use or different methods to say, well, why do you think that? That isn't necessarily right, and things like that. And she kind of put me in the middle of the spotlight all the time, which was a little uncomfortable.
Elon professor Kirsten Ringelberg brings up issues like transgender rights in class and says while it may make some students uncomfortable, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I like the idea of classrooms being uncomfortable spaces in useful ways. In other words, that your whole life you've believed one thing, and now you're surrounded by people who not only don't believe that, but who feel strongly that it's not appropriate. You're in an environment now with those people, and you're going to be uncomfortable. How do you handle that? That's an educational, that's a developmental experience that I think is really an important part of college.
But Schramm says the uncomfortable feeling in class just isn't worth it.
Why risk it if you're a conservative? That's how I look at it. I feel like it's much less of a risk to write a paper from a liberal perspective than a conservative perspective. I'm passing it into a teacher, and I have done that at Elon just for sake of not wanting to be looked down on for views that I actually have.
But for now, Schramm and Scott say they will continue to stay quiet in class while tensions across the state remain high. Connor Delpreet, Elon Local News.
The eyes of the nation were on the Tar Heel State Monday as the North Carolina General Assembly convened for the first time since passing controversial House Bill 2. Our Gary Grumbach filed this report from Raleigh.
Singing.
They thought they'd distract us with a transgender law.
Handmade posters.
We've read the fine print and we know.
And lots of chanting. Protesters and activists for and against House Bill 2 gathered in Raleigh Monday for an opportunity to have their voices heard. A day full of speeches, rallies, and a sit-in at the state capitol.
Governor McCrawley, this bill does not represent equality for all mankind.
Transgender woman and Charlotte-based preacher Debra Hopkins says the law, now in place for over a month, puts her in an uncomfortable and even dangerous situation.
Because you're forcing me now to go into a restroom where I know that I'll not only be harassed, or let alone I might become attacked, or even my life be taken.
Hopkins says it's not just about LGBT rights. The law also includes issues involving employment discrimination and minimum wage.
We really need to advocate equality for all and pay attention to jobs, housing, decent wages for all mankind.
Elon freshman Amy Belfer joined thousands here in downtown Raleigh to protest House Bill 2.
Everyone should have these basic human rights, and the government is taking it away from us, and we all need to stand together in solidarity to fight for human rights.
Belfer worked as a marshal for the NAACP, handling crowd control. Though organizers stressed the rally and sit-in was symbolic in nature, Belfer says standing up for others' rights is worth risking some of her own.
This is something I'm very passionate about because equality cannot be delayed. We need to fight for equality now, so I would be willing to get arrested.
While Belfer was not arrested, others were. Protesters young and old voicing their opinions on this controversial issue. In Raleigh, Gary Grumbach, Elon Local News.
A bill to repeal HB2 has been introduced in the North Carolina General Assembly. No word yet if legislatures will vote on it during their short session, which typically lasts about 6 weeks. And coming up after the break today is another Super Tuesday, this time in the Northeast. Find out what you need to know before voting closes.
One Elon student is highlighting some unsung heroes. Find out more coming up.
Another day, another political primary. Today is yet another Super Tuesday with contests in Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Although there are 5 states with primary elections today, Pennsylvania will be a very important state for the Republican race. PA has a non-binding loophole primary. This means out of the 71 delegates, 17 go to the person with the majority of the votes, while the remaining 54 are unbound delegates, aka they can vote for anyone at the Republican convention in July. These delegates may cost Donald Trump the election. He may have officially reached 50% support nationally, according to an NBC News poll, but neither of his opponents, Ted Cruz nor John Kasich, plan to drop out just yet. The two announced yesterday they plan to team up to block Trump's path to the nomination. Trump has responded through Twitter, saying their partnership shows weakness. Hillary Clinton is expected to sweep on the Democratic side, leaving Bernie Sanders with no path to the nomination. Stay up to date with the rest of the presidential race through our social media at Elon Local News and our website, elonlocalnews.com.
Former 2016 Democratic presidential candidate, Harvard University professor, and internet policy pioneer Lawrence Lessig visited Elon Law School today to record a live radio interview with Elon Law Associate Professor David Levine. Lessig is a political activist who supports state-based activism to encourage a reform in government and to rewrite the Constitution.
Unless we can build a movement strong enough to demand Congress fix itself by changing the way it funds elections, by ending the way it stupidly gerrymanders its district to protect itself from real competition, we won't have an institution that can actually work.
Lessig is also passionate about taking a stand against climate change and says millennials should take a stand as soon as possible.
You know, issues of climate change aren't things that my generation's going to actually have to live with. It's issues your generation's going to have to live with.
Lessig also addressed his arrest this past weekend. Lessig was charged with unlawful crowding and obstructing at a protest on campaign finance in Washington, D.C.
While some students spend their surf day lounging by the pool at Mill Point or sleeping in, one student is sharing stories about those who don't get the day off. Ashley Boley has more.
what I see here is an opportunity to tell the stories about the people who kind of go behind the scenes.
Inspired by the popular Facebook page Humans of New York, Elon University junior Scott Powell decided to create an Instagram account called Soul of Elon. It highlights Aramark, physical plant, transportation employees, and construction workers on Elon's campus.
They're really the people that make Elon possible.
As a human services major, Powell sees social media as an opportunity to express gratitude to Elon's employees and share stories Elon students may not know. Powell searches outside for employees to feature, but it's inside where he finds his stories. Donald Cousin is the latest Elon employee Powell profiles on Soul of Elon. He is an Elon custodian.
We do this every day. Every morning we come in, we'll empty the trash. I got a dust mop, I dust it, and then I'll mop it. And then maybe when all the students gone, I take everything out and put a coat of wax on it.
Cousin's hard work doesn't go unnoticed by Powell. He also asks Cousin about his life outside of campus.
What did you do this last weekend?
Clean my cars up.
Cars? You got multiple?
Well, I got a truck and a car.
It's these catch-up conversations which give new light to social media, giving Soul of Elon truly a soul.
I'm just trying to understand and to learn and to be a student of life.
Ashley Boley, Elon Local News.
To see more featured employees, check out @SoulOfElon on Instagram.
Coming up, if you've ever had trouble finding someone to get lunch with, we have a solution. Stick around and see who at Elon is down to lunch.
The sun was shining today, but is this weather going to stick around? I have your Phoenix 5-day forecast coming up.
Welcome back to Elon Local News. Rajat, it was hot outside today.
It motivated me to get my work done and try to get by the lake or by the pool. I just wanted to do something outside.
I couldn't agree with you more. Our Paul LeBlanc is outside on the weather dock in downtown Elon. Paul, let us know, how is this Phoenix 5-day forecast looking?
Thank you, Brianna and Rajat. Well, we've had a lot of nice days recently, but today felt like the first really hot day. It's cooled down a little bit. We're seeing a lot of traffic in downtown Elon, a lot of people enjoying the weather. Perfect night for a stroll on campus. We saw a high of 85 degrees and a low of 62 today, and it peaked right around 75. Tomorrow we're looking at similar temperatures, but it's going to be raining a little bit. Scattered showers throughout the day. It's going to be the same situation on Thursday. We're going to see a high of 82 and a low of 60 with some scattered thunderstorms throughout the day, but it's going to clear up into the night. Friday, we're looking at similar temperatures again. We're going to look at a high of 81 and a low of 54, and we're going to see some scattered showers again. But luckily, by the weekend, we're going to be rewarded for all that rain and all those clouds. Saturday, we have a high of 78 and a low of 54, but it's going to be nothing but sunshine the whole day. Sunday, we're looking at the same thing, another high of 78 and a low of 54. It's going to be nice and sunny. That is your Phoenix 5-day forecast. Brianna and Rajat, back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Paul. With all that nice weather, you're probably hoping to eat outside. And a new app has hit Elon's campus that can help make sure every meal is shared with your friends. Our Jackie Pascal is live in studio with your app of the week.
Thanks, Rajat. To show you the purpose of this app, let's use this scenario. You're walking out of class and you're hungry. Your friends from class are all gone and you're left to eat alone. But what you could do, what if you could invite all your friends to come with you to eat in less than a minute? Here's where this app comes into play. It's called Down to Lunch. It was created by Stanford students, but has expanded thousands of college students across the country. And it's more than just lunch. There's options for dinner, studying, going to the gym, or just chilling. And you can also customize the where to Elon-specific places like Colonnades Dining Hall or the route. And once you put in what you're doing and where, a notification is sent out to all of your friends on the app, inviting them to join you. And people have been spreading this app around campus by sending a text to people. You probably got a text on your phone, probably annoyed you a little bit because of how many you've been getting, but it's also expanding your friend list by the dozen. And one Elon student says it's actually helping him with those empty promises of hanging out with his friends.
It's like a lot of times you're walking down like a sidewalk and you see a friend and you say, let's get lunch sometime, and then you never really do. But this app kind of cuts out the middleman and all the steps, and you kind of just figure it out, and you kind of get lunch with people you never really see.
Now the app is free to download, and it's a convenient way to meet up with your friends with your limited free time. That's all for your app of the week. I'm Jackie Pascal. Back to you.
I'm Justin Beagle, and after the break, I talk with one Elon athlete combining her two favorite passions on this surf day. That and more next in sports. The Spring Undergraduate Research Forum, also known as Surf Day, gives students a chance to showcase their hard work every year. Students gathered in McKinnon Hall to hear presentations ranging from the Amazon trees to microbiology. For students like sophomore Dustin Ferris, it's a day to get inspired.
Nice to, hear students present, and it's interesting because it might be something I want to do later.
When senior Katie Karofsky was a sophomore, she was just beginning her research. 2 years later, she is finally seeing all that hard work pay off.
I like Surf Day a lot. I think it's a great way to cap off the year. I feel like having it other times might not be as effective, but I think having it at the very end is awesome to see all these, especially being a senior, there's so many seniors who put in so much effort. So at the end of the year, it's kind of that nice, we're done, this is kind of it.
Kids are just like you and me. We both go to class, we both do the same homework, but for one cross-country runner, today's Undergraduate Research Forum showcases just how much harder it is to balance athletics and academics. Senior Sabina Baines is no stranger to pressure. She's a runner after all. But at today's surf presentations, she faced a challenge nearly an entire year in the making.
I started compiling the data over the summer, which took a while. It took me about 2 months to do that.
Baines and her advisor researched racing trends amongst NCAA track runners, combining her two passions all into one project.
One of the most important things that we found was that the pace for your last mile, if that was quicker than the pace for your first 5 miles, you're more likely to have a better race. It's been really great actually, because in class, you just work on something for a project, but here I'm actually interested in I'm passionate about what I'm doing. It was kind of a real world experience where I got to use every step that I've learned and put it together.
Even with a slightly lighter course load this year, Baines put in a lot of time. And much like competing in a race, not everything ran so smoothly.
At one point we were having trouble finding significant results, so that was kind of hard. And sometimes the SAS program was really finicky.
The presentation may be done, but the finished product is far from complete.
I'm pretty relieved it's over, but we're still working on it because we're trying to submit a paper, so there's still a couple things that we want to analyze before we're through.
Baines will test her own theory when she runs a 10K at the end of the month.
And thank you, Justin, for that wonderful sports update.
You're welcome, as
Justin,
always.
you went on a number of wonderful sports adventures over your 4 years. What was your favorite sports adventure or covering a sporting event throughout your 4 years?
It's really hard to pick. There were so many great ones like you mentioned, but probably our sophomore year when the men's soccer team had that incredible run. I went to Los Angeles to watch them play UCLA in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Just being out in Los Angeles for a day. I mean, who does that at our age? It was incredible.
That's amazing. And then you got to go to a number of conference tournaments for basketball as well, didn't you?
Yes, you and I went together one time to Asheville for the SoCon tournament, for the last SoCon tournament, and then I've gotten to go back home to Baltimore the last 2 years and cover them there. So a lot of good basketball, soccer, football, you name it. I've covered it, just about everything, I think.
Fantastic. Well, that is all of the news we have for you tonight, and this is our last Elon Local News broadcast of the year.
In 25 days, we, along with 12 other ELN seniors, will be walking across the stage at graduation.
The underclassmen of Elon Local News will be combining with the Pendulum under a new name, the Elon News Network. We can't thank you all enough for your support and dedication this year, and we are so excited to see all of your successes in the next year.
As always, for the news you need to know, check us out at elonlocalnews.com. Follow us throughout the summer for all the Elon updates.
Have a great night, Elon, and a great end to your semester.